So, what is the quantum? How do you experience it? What's my experience of the quantum? So, you've probably heard these terms, quantum field, going into the quantum when you meditate, etc. And I just wanted to just do a quick video for you and just explain my experiences of going into the quantum when I meditate. Now, my experience, I just want to put a caveat in there before I do this video. My experience may be different to your experience. I can only comment on my own experience of the quantum because, number one, I'm not in your mind or somebody else's mind, and number two, I've only experienced what I've experienced, so I can only comment on what I've experienced. Everybody will experience it differently. It's all perfect. So I'll just give you a bit of a precursor to what I'm about to say, and it's just something to bear in mind. You have to understand that everybody's minds work differently. So some people are, when they close their eyes, they're able to imagine pictures, they can envisage things quite easily. So I'm quite visual. I don't learn from text or from hearing things. I learn from pictures. So I never forget a face, but I will forget a name. So if I meet you for the first time in I don't know if there's a conference, or I was to meet you in a networking meeting or something like this, it would take me 3, 4, 5 times of meeting you to actually remember your name, whereas I will never forget your face. So once I've seen a face once, it's almost like photographic. I will never forget a face. But that's just the way my mind works. So Ria's, for instance, for those of you who don't know, she's my wife. Ria experiences it very, very differently. So Ria doesn't see pictures. So Ria will experience feelings. She will remember smells, sensations, and she'll sort of feel energy, and she'll just sense her way around the quantum rather than seeing. It's all perfect. And you guys who perhaps have minds that work in the same way as Ria's, who perhaps aren't seeing things when you go into the quantum. So you read and you sort of seeing content around people who have gone to see their guides, and they're describing these visions and stuff that they've seen. If your mind isn't wired that way, then you're not going to experience the quantum in the same way as, say, somebody who can experience things visually. But it doesn't mean that you're in some way spiritually impaired. It's just your mind works differently, and you're experiencing it slightly differently to those people. But it's all the same thing. It's all perfect. So I don't want you to kind of beat yourselves up spiritually and think, oh, I'm not experiencing the quantum because when I go in, I can't see anything. I don't see my guides. And just because you don't visually see pictures of these, they can still communicate to you within that space. So it's all perfect. I just wanted to reassure you that what you're going through, if you're struggling to see things, is perfectly normal. It's just the way your mind works. So I'll just quickly talk about how I experience it. And just remember, if you're experiencing the quantum in a slightly different way to what I'm about to experience now, it doesn't mean that you're not experiencing the quantum, if that makes sense. I hope it does. So, again, don't criticize yourself. You'll have your own experiences. I just wanted to explain for the audience what my experience is. So when I meditate, I'm very, very good at visualizing when I meditate. So I can think of a picture, aeroplane, car, bus, bicycle. It doesn't matter. I can just see this image in my mind. What I was then able to do is, when I was sitting there holding breath, this is going way back when I first started connecting into the quantum and I first started developing spiritually. I explained the process to you. So I was sitting there, I used to meditate, used to do all my breath work, and I'd sit there, I'd find center, quiet my mind down, and I would just sit there holding breath. And then what I would do, my point of attention would then move backwards. So this makes sense to me. You may not experience this in the same way, but I'm just describing to you how I experiences and the stages that I went through to get into the quantum, and for me what the quantum is like. So when I'm sitting there with my point of attention within myself, I've centered myself, I've gone through all my visualization rituals, etc., visualizing light coming out of my third eye, grounding to the earth, and all of these procedures that I go through. What I could then do is I was then able to switch my point of attention and move my consciousness back. So in my mind's eye, I'm stood behind my body, so it's almost like an out-of-body consciousness experience. My consciousness is back from my physical body, which is sitting there, and I'm looking at the back of my physical body in my mind's eye when I'm meditating, and I've shifted my point of attention with the consciousness back here. So I'm usually about a foot or so behind my physical body. What I then do is I got quite good at, I'm still in this room, by the way, my point of attention and consciousness is just physically behind, looking at my physical body while I'm sitting in a chair, whatever room that may be or wherever I am. And then what I practiced was, I practiced moving around this space with my consciousness, still looking at my body, but I would look around the room and I would look at a glass, I would look at the window, I would look at the picture which I knew was there, and I would just practice moving around in this space. And then I took it a stage further, where I would go through the door, I'd walk down the corridor, go through the bathroom, I'd go into the kitchen, perhaps out into the garden, I'd look at the wildlife, I'd look at the things. So I just practiced becoming very, very present in 3D space, but a consciousness version of that. So it was like I say, it was like an outer body consciousness experience within 3D. So my consciousness was still in 3D, walking around the house, etc. But it was, a point of attention was outside of my body. So that was the first step. So practice this over it was a period of weeks, because initially it's quite difficult to do, so it's like, in the beginning it takes a lot of concentration, you can feel drained, and you've just got to do session after session after session. Again, it's a process, this is a lifetime commitment for your spiritual development, but just commit to it, just press into it, because it's all going to be worth it. So I did this for a few weeks, and then, what then happened to me was I basically fell into the quantum. So I'm going to try and find earth adjectives in English to describe this experience, which is going to be quite difficult, because this experience is not of this earth. And earth language, English language, other languages of earth are here to describe earth experiences, so it's difficult sometimes to find the adjectives and descriptive words to describe what happens in the quantum. So bear with me, I'll try my best. So I'm there in this space and I'm thinking, right, I want to kind of push back and see if I can get into this quantum, and I can't remember what kicked it off, but there was something where there was just a shift, and I just consciously fell back from this 3D reality space outside of my body, and I just fell back into this blackness. So my eyes are closed. So in my mind's eye, I've fallen back into this space. And this space is just black and it's infinite. Sounds big and it sounds scary, right? But it's not. So your consciousness is going, nothing to worry about in the quantum. You're not going to get lost in the quantum. It's black, it's vast, it's everything, it's nothing. At the same time, it's all that ever has been, it all that ever is, and it all that ever will be. You're also connected into this huge collective consciousness of all that ever is, will be, and is. So everything, all the light beings, etc., you're connected into this massive collective consciousness. You can move around this at will with thought. So you can travel to different parts of Earth. You can travel to different parts of the galaxy. You can meet with your guides. You can meet with different beings on different planets. You can manifest a new 3D reality, so you can do manifestation within there. You can rewrite timelines. It's just, it's a space of infinite possibility, and it's like bliss when you're in there. So the sensations you get within yourself, you are literally, I don't want to put earth constructs like, I feel like I've gone to heaven, or it's a utopia, because it's not like that. You don't experience it like that. But it just feels like bliss. It just feels like any earth concerns that you have in the 3D reality, any little niggles you've got going on in your 3D life, they just melt away. They're just irrelevant. It just doesn't matter. You just are. It just is. You're just in this infinite space of possibility, and it's so vast, yet it's nothing at the same time. Time also isn't linear. So in Earth, we have last week, last year, last decade, and into the future, we're going to have, it's 24 hours in a day, there's 7 days in a week, 365 days in a year, 12 months in a year. It doesn't work like that there. So, I've had experiences in the quantum where I've experienced downloads of information from my spirit guides, which give you a huge perspective of the bigger picture and our different lifetimes, etc. And I feel like I've been in there absorbing this information, these downloads, for about 8 hours. It feels like I've gone and done a shift, or I've gone to, if you're in university or you're in your job, you feel like I've done a whole day's worth of mental work downloading this stuff. And then I think, I can't energetically have any more now. So I came back into my 3D and I looked, and I'd been in there 15 minutes. So it's like your perception of time just changes when you're in the quantum, so you can experience it completely differently. I felt like I'd been in there 8 hours and it'd just been minutes when I came out. Inversely, it doesn't always work that way. It works the other way. So I've been in there and I've met with my spirit guides, and it's all gone really, really quick when I've been in the quantum. I've been having these conversations, etc., and receiving this information, and I feel like I've done a short trip. So I feel like I've been in there sort of, from an earthly 3D perspective, I feel like I've had sort of 5 minutes in the quantum. I come out and I look at the clock and it's been 2 hours. So of Earth time, 2 hours. And feel like I've been in there 5 minutes. So the perception of how you experience time in this place is flip Earth time completely on its head, because it's just not. So, you hear stories about these people doing transcendental meditations. And Ria was at a class once, a yoga class, where they did some sort of meditation afterwards. And this lady was in this class, and she basically started meditating. Obviously spiritually quite advanced. She started meditating, and obviously she'd gone off into the quantum field. You could just sense that she'd done that. The class ended, and they couldn't wake her up. And this lady's just sat in this yoga class, and she sat there for 2 hours. They couldn't bring her around. And then after 2 hours, she kind of came to her senses, and she, oh, okay, I've just popped in, and to her, she didn't feel like she'd been in the quantum that long, but she sat there for 2 hours in this yoga class. So this is transcendental meditation, and it's to get your head around the fact that time, when you get in there, is not linear. It's not. So your experience of time in the quantum, from an Earth's perspective, is just it's going to completely widen your perspective. But, when you go into the quantum, it's a wonderful, wonderful place if you can get there. That's your goal. Your goal is to get into the quantum, because that's where the magic happens. But again, it's to reassure you, yes, it's an infinite space. It's massive, but yet it's not. It's nothing to fear. If you've got some blocks around going into the quantum, because if you've got psychological blocks, I'm not sure, I don't want to go into the quantum, what if I get lost, or I get taken over by something, or... you can kind of place these limitations on your experience, and psychologically you won't surrender to the experience, which you need to surrender to it to go back into it and trust it. And I've had people say to me, am I going to get lost in the quantum? What if I can't come back? You're not going to get lost, honestly. It's nothing to worry about. It's nothing to fear. At any time, your soul's vessel for this lifetime is this 3D physical body. That's what it sits in. That's what our consciousness sits in. This is its home for this lifetime, okay, before it gets reincarnated and it learns its next lesson in the next lifetime, etc. So this would be in your soul and your consciousness's home. You can always come home, because it's the home for this lifetime. You can always come home whenever you want. So you're there in the quantum. If you feel... okay, I'm just going to go back to 3D reality, bang. You can bring your point of attention into your physical body, open your eyes, you'll feel groggy probably for 10, maybe 30 seconds. You just maybe need to sit quietly, have a little drink of water, and you can just get on with your day. And it's no problem. So don't ever think that you're going to get lost in the quantum, or that you're going to fall back, you won't be able to come back in, but it is just blissful. Everything and nothing, collective consciousness, the area of infinite possibilities. It's just a wonderful, wonderful space. So hope that sort of gave you an insight on my perspective on sort of quantum, how I experience it, etc. But if you don't experience it visually in the same way, it's all perfect. It's just your mind will work in a slightly different way. And people's do. Not everybody's minds are the same. So that's an important thing to understand. Have a great day, and I'll see you again. Take care.